Christmas Evil is a thriller film from 1980 directed by Lewis Jackson and starring Brandon Maggart. With the promise of being yet another schlock slasher film, Christmas Evil subverts expectations by instead becoming a character study to surprising and mesmerizing effect. I watched this film on Blu-ray thanks to the hard efforts of Vinegar Syndrome, and in this video I'd like to review it. If you have any desire to watch a confrontational and impressive independent film of a critique of the ideology of Christmas, you'd best turn this review off right now and go watch it. In my opinion, a blind viewing is the best approach for this one. Christmas Evil tells the story of Harry, a line worker for a local toy store in what looks to be the northeastern United States. As a child, Harry was given a demonstration of Santa arriving at his house and handing out presents. Harry's brother, Phil, skeptically states later that Santa was nothing more than his father. Harry isn't so sure. When Harry goes back downstairs, he sees Santa and his mother engaging each other sexually. This traumatic split is called upon once again when Harry is an adult. Harry has recently had several stressors in his life. He has moved from line worker to manager, taking him further away from the toys he fetishizes, putting him squarely in the place of businessmen he also despises. He is invited back onto the line by Frank, a line worker who claims he wants to spend some extra time with his family. Harry finds Frank later that evening bragging in a bar about duping Harry into covering his shift. There is one last event that I won't spoil that culminates in nothing less than a psychotic break, and the remainder of the film consists in how Harry restructures his new reality. Christmas Evil owes a great debt to Taxi Driver, which released just 4 years previously. Christmas Evil is a remarkably cohesive film. I was expecting a movie with a great deal of slasher repetition, where Harry, in this maddened state, would simply murder wantonly, producing a span of violence so egregious that it would fit the title of cult film. What we get instead is the application of Christmas iconography, in particular the mystique surrounding Santa Claus as a personality, in novel ways, giving each new development an aura of wonder and shock. One example is in regards to Santa's naughty and nice list, a part of his history we all know from childhood, but it surprises us to see this in literal, physical form, when it is revealed that Harry too keeps a naughty and nice list. Seeing Harry spy on children, writing down their actions, colors the myth with unsettling implications, while also adding to a growing understanding of Harry's paranoid leanings that occur in his psychotic break. Harry grows to believe that being naughty, or nice, can apply to each aspect of life, the kind of black and white morality system that is a direct symptom of psychosis. This conflation of Harry's breakdown and the myth of Christmas meld so well together that one cannot really view Christmas innocently ever again. Though this movie is incredibly coherent in its vision, some of the execution misses the mark. While Harry's actions after his break are usually surprising and yet inevitable, given what we know about him and Santa Claus, one such moment of Harry sneaking back into his workplace to turn on the assembly line strikes us as paradoxically careless, with him breaking the toys. Harry does explain his rationale, but to me it falls outside the possibility of his particular psychosis. Harry's affection for the toys he just gave away would supplant his desire to see them destroyed before him, by machines or his own hands. So too, Harry's psychotic speech to his brother Phil about playing a tune is emptier speech than we would like. Perhaps some better phrase could have been selected, one symptomatic of that first traumatic moment as a child, to better connect the film to his character. Some of the technical facets of the film feel quite bizarre. In an early scene, the children disappear from the stairsteps while the scene itself remains. Some awkward splicing of film produces strange repetitions of shots between cuts. Some shots return to a particular angle one too many times, token of an independent film of this kind. Some of the extras and actors with one or two lines give off bad reads, which is simply perhaps a contrast to Brandon Maggart's stellar performance. As a result, a 3 out of 5 for coherence. At 1 hour and 40 minutes, Christmas Evil produces sensations of wonder, estrangement, sardonic humor, mesmerizing anxiety, and, finally, an ending so adroitly magical, my exultant laughter felt like it was pulled from my body. Much of the movie is reliant on Brandon Maggart's performance, one that is handled deftly and with subtlety. Harry has to be first and foremost an outcast, socially inept, and yet, overlaid onto this, Harry has to also attempt to wear the phallus of Santa Claus with authenticity. This clash of anemic personality with over-exuberant charisma melded together perfectly by Maggart, absolutely perfectly. All sorts of strange outcomes and side effects occur, all of which the camera capitalizes on. One such scene occurs when Harry is caught peeping into a work party, and the adults bring him in because, after all, he's Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. Harry, pantomiming Santa, scares the children with threats of being put on the naughty list, and then he laughs, uproariously holding and shaking his stomach too violently. Just at that moment, the camera cuts to a woman who expresses the exact face we might be wearing while watching. This deep understanding of the film expresses such confidence in its material. Given another director, another actor, another context, and this delicate balancing act could have slipped into a farcical children's parable, an over-bloody gore fest, or remained tepid and commercial. Instead, the film progresses itself further and further expertly into peak anxiety and foreboding, as Harry crosses multiple points of no return. The camera works well to accentuate these feelings, producing several dynamic shots following Harry as he walks directly toward the camera with malice. Several long and static shots let Maggart's performance breathe, and particular moments of Harry's rehearsal of Santa Claus are authentic and horrible. Listening to Harry hum Christmas tunes produces one of the most haunting Christmas soundtracks of all time. The richness of Harry's nighttime jaunts through the town should not go unstated either, and the context of the film provides a town that feels alive and celebratory and robust, akin to the authentic space of the town square of the first Gremlins film from 1984. Lewis Jackson's Christmas Evil, however, is less colorful, more drab, giving Santa Claus's contrasting outfit the rich color of blood by comparison. The contrasts are dramatic, with the sterile bright white of lights, as well as sullen blacks where all detail is lost. This combination produces one of the best shots of the film, which is a lineup of only Santa Claus impersonators, drowned in bright fluorescent light, reciting Merry Christmas to witnesses of Harry's violent outburst. Once again, some aspects of the emotional undercurrents beneath the film lack exploration. The relationship between Harry and Phil as it reaches adulthood is stilted, perhaps unnaturally, and their reunion at the end of the film feels bizarrely short-circuited, as Phil and Harry do not seem quite able to reach a compromise, and yet their confrontation is violent to an absurd degree. Phil's wife, the devil's advocate to Harry, lacks foundation, threatening to have us perceive her as a total airhead, due to what we know of Harry, producing a dramatic irony that leaves her in a bad spot. Still, for a wild combination of hilarity, anxiety, and delightful terror, a 4 out of 5 seems apt. Christmas Evil is a film about belief, and why belief must have a certain distance maintained in order for it to work. In the Catholic Church, the rituals of Christianity are not a method for further belief, but are instead actions the body can take to keep belief mediated in the realm of tradition rather than taken seriously. French author Michel Houellebecq has said that beautiful Catholic cathedrals are the only place where he can still be Christian. This is the inspiration for a film like Taxi Driver or Christmas Evil. People who adore Robert De Niro unironically in the former film should perhaps watch Brandon Maggart in the latter in order to understand this disconnect. It is when people close the distance between themselves and their beliefs that the problems arise. Nobody takes Santa Claus seriously because to do so would be, as we can see, psychologically disturbing. Instead, the purpose of specific beliefs like Santa Claus is to help children bootstrap belief systems in general. Christmas Evil understands this almost perfectly, creating in Harry a gap that Harry has to fill, restructuring his life around the traditions of Christmas, fully identifying not just in its aesthetic choices, but more importantly, in its implications for living life in the day-to-day. Obviously, this produces horrific results. What is really more profound in the movie is not only his projective missions out into the world, but in how he is perceived. Harry becomes, in the small town, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Harry looks out at a full moon, and we conflate Santa Claus with that of the werewolf, prowling around on a special night, doing what he pleases, eating our food, meddling with our children, and perhaps most terrifyingly, capturing the phantasmatic desires of our women. He dances with these young women, and they are overjoyed. The ending of the film has complexities I think even the makers of the film do not understand. I'll speak on this later, but for now, Christmas Evil, despite several psychoanalytic ambiguities mentioned earlier, still gets a 5 out of 5 from me for carrying through on its vision to the very end. It's difficult to make an original Christmas film. The aesthetic is so worn down that it is far easier to be tacky than tasteful, trite than truthful, which is why I think Christmas Evil's originality is so refreshing. One cannot make it through over 30 Christmases without some degree of wantonness, frustration, pent-up rage at the traditions of our world which fall so flat when played out in countless suburbs. Harry is one fantastical and profound misreading of what might happen if we were being honest with ourselves. Companies use philanthropy as a shield to buffer against counter-arguments of greed and culpability. Children can be naughty, oftentimes will be, in alarming ways even the best of parents have a hard time understanding. And Christmas itself is emblematic of a symbolic order that seems to hang by a thread, where the slightest misstep of an insane Santa Claus can produce, at the very least, paroxysms of worry, at the very most, an angry, torch-bearing mob. Just as Santa Claus is obsessed with the image of childhood rather than actual children, we too in the United States obsess over children in the abstract, rather than the actual starving children, the homeless children whose numbers have risen dramatically since the COVID-19 pandemic. Christmas Evil takes this critique of the image a step further, and here is where I am going to reveal the ending of the film. Please step away from your goddamn image machine if you have not seen this movie, because I think the ending is sublime and needs to be seen firsthand. Harry drives his creepy van, reconstituted as a sleigh, throughout the neighborhood, eventually being placed back into it while unconscious by his brother, Phil, who just earlier had tried to choke him to death. Fearing he died, Phil instead sees an awakened Harry, who strikes Phil and drives off. Seeing the angry mob he fled earlier in the film, Harry swerves erratically and drives through fencing and off a cliff. Phil, in pursuit, does not make it in time, and sees his brother's van lurch in the air off a cliff, only to suddenly suspend itself and turn upward, actually flying through the air like Santa's sleigh. Of course, the simple interpretation to make is the delusional Harry fantasizing his own death as one of a victory for Santa Claus, and that he is returning to the North Pole. But the strange sensation I had when watching the film was not of Santa Claus, but the story of Elijah. In the Christian Bible, Elijah was a prophet in dark times in 1st and 2nd Kings. Rather than die a corporeal death, a fiery chariot from heaven swoops down and collects Elijah, taking him up towards heaven in much the same way. Phil's stunned and reticent expression takes on the role perhaps of Elisha, witnessing the van take flight. Both Santa and Elijah have an aerial chariot, pulled by horses or reindeer. This enabling of Harry's delusions onto the screen is the kind of intense and pure enjoyment that is the stuff of film. The readings are numerous. 1, it offers a consolation prize to the theory of Harry at the very least. There is certainly a problem in the world that Santa Claus covers up, and Harry playing Claus reveals it. 2nd, the conflation with Christianity reinforces the notion of several different readings. One is simply a reinforcement of the first reading, that of Harry as a prophet. Another one, far more scathing, is the rejection of beliefs like Santa Claus and Christianity and the way that they produce psychoses which help in the survival of our individual psyches, but do nothing for the actual children of the world, as we've mentioned before. A third reading could be that the idea of Santa Claus will always live on, undead, because although Harry the corporeal madman is undoubtedly dead, Santa Claus can never be erased. This takes the textuality of the film to its most extreme. In the film, we begin with a flashback to 1947. But when the film returns, we do not see a date, 1980, but rather the phrase, the present day. Of course, in one sense, this is impossible. The technology, the clothes, the heavy metal cars, the amount of drinking and smoking, all of it reeks of a bygone America. And yet here I am in 2023 watching the film today, during the Christmas season, and it is this topicality of the film that is distressing. The ending of the film directly points to this present dayness. Santa Claus is coming, every year, producing in us all the threats in that time we've come to know. The tradition of Christmas is used to the film's advantage. Christmas Evil produces, therefore, in its ending not only the psychotic ending of good and bad, but also produces the neurotic one of the stain of Santa Claus as he remains. I think the film is the sharpest and most compelling in this singular moment. And while I think the immediate lead-up before this moment does not quite land, Harry's taking off is nothing short of inspired. A 5 out of 5 for originality. Christmas Evil, in my opinion, is a must-watch for adults who live in the Western world, particularly North American suburbs, who feel the oppressive weight of Christmas time with each passing year. For those who enjoy the character studies of films that showcase the gradual disintegration of the ego, like that of Joker or Taxi Driver, Christmas Evil should be right up there on your list. With a combined score of 4.25 out of 5, you can tell that I enjoyed this film immensely for, most importantly, its use of the filmic medium as a way to explore a concept. Thanks for watching.